Yep. And welcome to Verbal Pick Radio, where we give you a verbal image of life, and we are every day. People like to welcome you all to the show, right? Now, today I got a special guest, good friend of mine, Dave D. Alex, in
What's
the
going on?
studio. What's going on, fam?
You got it, man. I'm glad to be here, bro. I'm glad to see you got your platform up and going, man, and glad you have me on here, bro.
Yeah, well, of course, thanks to you who a master within graphics and this technology and helping me or guiding me through the process to where we can bring you this very important topic, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Now we discussing American huntings, right? It says ghosts, gangsters, murder, and mayhem in American history, right?
Okay.
So now we're dealing with the Mulatto Ax Murders between 1911 and 1912, right? Which I did a small, short horror story based on this topic we're getting ready to discuss because the guy killed over 49 people and he disappeared, right?
That's a lot
Now,
of people, man.
a lot of people. But look, through my research, I'm believing he left while they couldn't find him because he left, went into World War I on Russia's side. He learned chemicals, learned how to make gases for during the war, World War I. Had a child, and that child fathered another child, and that
Okay.
grandchild returned to Texas, uh, and continued on with the same thing in the short horror film,
Wow.
right? You know, because it took place. Some of it took place from Louisiana to Texas, and and some took place in Hempstead, Texas, which is right up 290.
Okay.
So I'll read by paragraph,
Okay.
and then we'll discuss that paragraph, and then
All right.
I also will have these paragraphs posted for the listening audience. They can ride along with us.
Okay.
So it starts off. It says around the same time that the city of Atlanta was dealing with the slayings of at least 20 young African American and mixed race women, Louisiana and Texas were dealing with murders of another kind. Once again, the victims were African American and of mixed race, and once again, the murders received little newspaper coverage. And as the years have gone by, few people remember these bloody cases, right?
Okay.
So it says between January 11 and April of 1912, an unidentified killer slaughtered 49 people in Louisiana and Texas, leaving the police baffled. In each case, the murder weapon was an axe, which was not uncommon at the time. In those days, an axe was often used, especially in cases of domestic murder. Nearly every family had one, since wood had to be split for cooking and heating, and it often became a weapon of convenience. But while there were axe murders all over the country, this string of murders was different. In addition to as axe being used as a murder weapon, all of the victims were mulattoes or members of families with mixed race children. The killer was presumed by blacks and the police alike to be selecting victims on the basis of their mixed or tainted blood, right? And we'll go into the next paragraph in a minute. But okay, so I'm trying to understand. Let's say this is back in the early 1900s, 1911, right? Now I do know back then in some states it was illegal to marry outside your race for a black to marry a white person.
Oh man.
Oh,
It
you
was.
know,
Yes, sir. I know those times were a lot different than now. I mean,
right? And
yeah.
we got hold on, we're gonna get Pebbles on so she can come in and we finna get this thing going. Pebbles, welcome to the show, Pebbles.
Welcome. Hello, everyone.
What's going on? Hey, it's myself, Dave is here. Can you see us?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Where we on? And we on the topic. of the Mulatto Ax Murders, right? Now, Pebbles, and I was telling Dave, we know that in the early 1900s it was illegal for race mixing as far as it came down to marriage, and as far as mating and whatnot, that was kind of frowned upon, right? So, but let's go back, if you will, to, let's say, prior to 1865, before the Emancipation Proclamation, right? Because there was a mindset, a sentiment that would had to anger someone to where they would target only mulattoes, right? So we're gonna go over some different scenarios on why that could have been, right? And
Yeah.
see if that can narrow down the killer, right? So in the article it said tainted blood, right? Now let's say we'll play devil's advocate, right? Why would a white person be upset at the mulatto murders?
I think in a sense, man, even though we wasn't around in those times and we only could kind of learn a little bit from what TV and what history books and a lot of things have shown us about those times. I know it's double, a lot of narratives to that part of the scenario, but I do think that they didn't want to mix races back then, and they took it to extreme measures to stop it from happening or whatever. But people still did what they wanted to do. But you had people that just felt like they were used to being in control and in power, that they could just, do what they wanted to do. And if anybody didn't agree with what it took situations into their own hands, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
You
And
know what I mean? And actually go and murder someone with an axe? Are you serious?
right,
Like,
right. How gruesome that would be, but
right.
when you look at Dr. Francis Cress Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
she was saying that it was that black phallus that they didn't want to contaminate their bloodline, meaning that that baby wasn't coming out looking like grandpa
Right, right,
when,
right.
when it mixed with, a melanated person.
Yeah, they was embarrassed. They was embarrassed.
And then they would shun that child,
Right.
or they would kill the father of that child.
See, that's crazy. That's
Uh,
crazy.
that was, and I did a show and I was stating how, back in slavery time, really, that was the first deadbeat dad,
Oh
was
man.
the colonizer, slavery.
Yeah.
Meaning you had babies with these black women, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't take care of the children. That black man had to still take care of that child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was, I mean, it was,
That's some
it,
horrific times, man. Some horrific times for people, like I said, taking stuff into their own hands, and then they actually, you know, I watched a couple of shows, man, and a lot of different documentaries talking about, race mixing and stuff like that. And it's basically a fear of another race of being, genetically dominated. Once it's mixing, they can't have a pure race anymore of anything. And I think that scares a lot of people that, hey, my race, instead of looking at it like, it's a continuation of it. I understand to a certain extent, but they want a pure bloodline, but you can't always have what you want. You can't say who can do what or what they shouldn't do. You don't have to worry about yourself. So I don't think that people have a right to go out and kill someone just because they don't want that bloodline to continue on with someone, as they say, tainted blood or whatever, the mixing of it like that. That's bad, man.
that's bad. But what you think, Pebble?
I gave it a thought. I said, I just thought, I said, if I were a detective
Mm-hmm.
back during that time, I said that perhaps I would start by looking at the pattern, not just so much the weapon, because it was said that during that time, a lot of people had, having an axe in the home was just common because people had to chop wood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but here's the thing: those murders, they weren't just random killings. 49 people,
Right.
mostly African American or mixed race,
Right.
murdered with the same brutal precision across Louisiana and Texas in just 1 year.
Right. That's a
That
lot.
tells me it tells me that this was it. What I believe is that it could have been an organized campaign of terror or the work of someone driven by deep racial hatred and possibly religious or ideological obsession.
Oh wow, exactly. Now we're gonna now and we was talking about, let's say if the killer was white person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we talking on what if the killer was a black person, right?
Yeah.
Now I do know that they were saying, and it was a guy named Mr. Blyton. He said put on his tombstone that he hate mulattoes, right?
Wow.
Because he felt like every time that the black people who had was gaining progress and
Mm-hmm.
freedom, and even if they had plans to escape, he said that they were always betrayed by the mulatto because sometimes they would show loyalty to that white side family of the blood,
And double agent, huh?
double agent, right? And in his mind, right? And but
Yeah.
I do know uh, in the Moors, I do know that the Moors, one of their downfalls and how they lost Spain, they were sleeping with them white women.
Woo.
How
Mm.
they lost Spain,
I
and
don't know.
they told them, and we look. And the funny part about it, we even discussed this even to this day. They say, man, when you marry them white women, you wind up losing everything, and they family get everything, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you get a lot of people saying, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But as you stated, we're at 2025, so but we still talking about the same issues in 2025 that took place in 1912 and 11 and 12. But we progressed to the fact that people are not taking axes now, going to mulattoes and you know what I mean?
Right, right. I think we are able to discuss it freely now, and like you say, use technology a lot to kind of. It's kind of hard for people to get away with stuff. They still do, but they have to, really plan and plot things out to do things because now you got surveillance everywhere. People got devices, trackers, this and that. So if somebody was to kill 49 people in 2025, they've been found
They found.
him
Right.
or they've been found them because if they want them to find them, you know what I mean? Because it's a lot of things that's being done that we don't know anything about because nobody's out there to, figure things out. You get people way out there in the woods, way out there. You
Yeah.
don't know what goes on out there.
But think about the mindset of the person that you killing over close to
It's
20
demonic.
people a day.
Demonic.
The money you got to be,
Demon
or
possessed,
or
man.
you that, or something traumatic happened to you, to where you felt like you getting ready to free society of some type of ill. That's almost Hitler and the Jews. That's almost with the colonizers, black people, colonizers and the Native Americans, the colonizers and the Tasmanian people in Australia, to where they wiped all of them out. On the one survived.
Like genocide. Genocide.
Genocide. That was almost like a genocide between Texas and Louisiana. Now,
So
y'all
the way
take
they're
it.
doing it is more on a vigilante. They're feeling like so many people agree with them, but they're just taking action. I'm going to take action. I'm going to go do something about it. And the fact that, like I said, didn't really make the newspapers. It didn't really. They just kind of swept it up under the rug and let you know that a lot of people have a lot of deep hatred, and they feeling like, well, if nobody's asking about it, we ain't gonna talk about it. But that doesn't mean they don't know that it did or didn't exist.
Right, right. Now, this one says the first attack took place in early January 1911 in Rhine, Louisiana, when a mother and her three children were hacked to death in their beds in February. The killer struck again, this time in the town of Crowley, about 10 miles from Rhine. Three members of the Byers family were murdered in an identical manner to the early victims. 2 weeks later, four members of the Andrews family in Lafayette were also murdered in their beds. Each of them had been hacked to death with an axe during the early morning hours. The killer first struck in Texas on March 22nd, 1911, when the Castaway family was slaughtered in their home. Louis Castaway was a black man who was employed at the Grant School for Black Children in San Antonio. The bodies of Castaway, his wife, and three children were found in their home on Olive Street after Louis failed to come in to work that day. A friend stopped by to check on him and discovered the bloody scene and called the police. Right?
Mm.
Steady going. We're going to go a little further. In the front room of their small house, Castaway was lying on a day bed with his daughter. Louis, who was 6 years old, their heads had been crushed by the blunt side of an axe, and then oddly, the killer had covered Louis' face with a piece of cloth. In the next room, officers found Louis' wife, a white woman whose name was not given in newspaper reports, lying dead in bed with the bodies of the other two children. A baby boy, 6 months old, was clutched in his mother's arms, his skull crushed by an axe. Jose,
Let's
the
see.
Castaway 3-year-old daughter, was lying dead across her mother's legs. The police surmised that she had awakened during the murders and had tried to escape. She was struck down before she could climb down from the bed. Castaway's wife was the most badly disfigured of all of the victims. She had been struck repeatedly with the blunt side of the axe, spraying blood all over the walls of the bedroom. Bro, like y'all saying, this gotta be a demonic being, bro. He had to be possessed with something, right?
Definitely.
Uh,
Are
I, I,
they? Are they?
right? Or they? So you saying it could have been a cult?
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like more than one person, like a group of people doing that.
But we still haven't got to the. By the time it's over, we gonna get to the bottom of why did they pick out they specific targets.
Okay.
Right? So the police was baffled by the crime. They had not yet been connected to the murders in Louisiana and found no evidence of a robbery or any rational motive for the murders. Nothing in the house was disturbed, and Louis' trousers were still hanging from the bedpost with several dollars in the pocket. The Castaway family had no enemies, and in fact, Louis, who had moved to the city from New Orleans many years before, was widely known and respected by whites and blacks alike.
Mm.
His wife had lived in San Antonio for about 10 years. She had married Louis in Mexico, and by all accounts, their marriage was a happy one. Bro, but think about this. Yeah, think about this. In the 1911s, he was respected by whites and blacks, and he married his wife in Mexico. Because when you hear these movies and you see these stories, they try to make it seem separate. But according to these details, folks were just moving around from Mexico to Texas, Louisiana. They was married in Mexico. He was
Well,
working for the school.
They probably had to go to Mexico to do it. They probably couldn't in their town. Probably would nobody marry them in their town. That's probably why they went to Mexico
Out to get married.
So
Yeah.
to
how
get married.
was he?
Huh?
I say, so how well respected was he by the whites?
Right. If he was well respected, right? How
Yeah,
you had to go to Mexico to get married.
yeah.
Wow. So on November 29th, 1911, which we coming up to November 29th, the murderer traveled back to Lafayette, Louisiana. 6 members of the Norbert Roundup family were slain in their beds, each killed with the blunt side of an axe, shattering their skulls. The bodies of Randall, his wife, and their 4 children, all under the age of 9, were discovered by neighbors. Their home looked like a slaughterhouse, but this time the police managed to track down some clues. A young black woman named Clementine Barnabette was arrested after witnesses claimed to have seen her in the vicinity around the time of the murders. Clementine, aged 19, attended a house of worship called the Sacrifice Church with the Rounders. After being questioned by the police, she stated that she had killed the family because Norbert Rounder refused to follow church orders after being subjected to the third degree. As the newspapers put it, she also confessed to the murders of the Andrews family back in February. She claimed that she had committed those murders with the help from her father. The two
What?
were arrested and held in custody through the spring of 1912, but their incarceration didn't stop at the carnage. But the incarceration didn't stop the carnage. Okay, so
See,
she
I
and
don't know about that one, man. That don't sound the sacrifice church. What? I'm gonna do the
who
pastor. I mean,
but now check this out. Now, Pep, tell me what you think. Y'all tell me if y'all think I'm crazy, right? Right. And look, yo, I've seen some shows and I've seen some things of how they would do voodoo in Africa, right? Then I seen some of the same movements and steps and dances when they would say they caught the Holy Ghost and got sanctified in some churches.
Music?
That music, huh?
Yes, music.
What do you say? Music brings out that frequency.
it's definitely
Yes.
conjuring spirits. It's definitely some conjuring going on in it.
Even if you're not listening to so-called Christian music, it could be music. Music speaks to the soul. It's almost the exact same. If you take, let's say, if you have a group of young folks and you play a particular genre of music, you can have everybody about to fight.
Oh yeah, you been
Yeah.
yes, you
So,
right.
for instance, yeah, it
Yep.
can work just the same
I've
in
been
terms
clear.
of the Holy Ghost. I mean,
You
that's just my personal experience.
know, I've been in club where they said you cannot play these songs, this particular song in the club, because it start fights.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't put so that music activates some spirit or energy within people and take over and possess them.
I believe that.
Yes.
I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it. You know, I've been like, we've all been to house parties and little small get-togethers and stuff. And then it always a point of the night where somebody or something's gonna happen.
It's going down, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
It
That's why I
all.
said equally when it comes to if you're listening to gospel music, it can do the same. The organ, the instruments. Think about it. The
Yep.
Right.
instruments. It can put you in a particular zone.
And there you go. And
And see,
all you need to know. Right.
that's why if when you would have the big bands, let's say they say from the East Coast, that type of music, the old higher players and things like that, their music was just different. And then
Right.
it did a certain thing to you, to your body. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right, and you got them seances and that spirit that in what is it called, incantation. Right. All right, we got the guard low key. What's going on, fam?
Yo, what's going on? Oh, I was supposed to put the name in the John.
But AKA Pan African Moor, AKA Krishna. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yes, indeed. Look, so okay, so jump right in. We finna finish this because we just got to the sacrifice church on the 49 killings of the Mulatto murders. So on January 19th, 1912, the killer returned to Crowley, Louisiana, the scene of one of his earlier crimes, and killed a mixed-race woman and her three children as they slept. 2 days later at Lake Charles, Felix Broussard, his wife, and three children were also slaughtered with an axe. This time, the killer left a note behind. It read, "When he make it the inquisition for blood, he forgot it not the crime of the humble human five." Can we decipher that or what that could possibly mean? Anybody?
What? Say it again. What
When
was that?
he
Exactly.
left a note behind and it stated, "When he make it the inquisition for blood, he forgot it not the crime of the humble human five."
Wow, that definitely that language. The language alone. What language does that sound like it's coming from? What peoples?
Yeah, that sound like that old English.
Yeah, definitely some
it
British overtones.
sounds like yeah,
Definitely some that make it with the it on the end of it, be and thou one too. Yeah.
yeah. Wait, make it. What's the inquisition for blood? He don't forget. He forgot. It's saying he forgot not the crime of the humble. What he's saying that even though you saying you humble, we still don't forget the crime. Oh, because you know what? It was a crime for race mixing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even though
Mm-hmm.
saying you good people and you know you nice and you do this and pay your tithe and dues, right? He say we still gonna get you.
No,
You
that
violate.
individual thought that what they were doing, it was the godly thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's
It's
check
an
this
act
out.
of God.
It said third, by what seemed to be religious implications, the police decided to look harder at Clementine, Barnabette, and the Sacrifice Church. Informants reported links between the church and certain voodoo cults in New Orleans, but try as they might, the police could find no evidence against anyone in the church. Barnabette herself insisted that the murders were related to a voodoo charm that she had purchased from a local witch doctor. The charm reportedly assured Barnabette and her father that we could do as we please and we would never be
Mm.
detected. She tried to test the magic by committing the murders. Police eventually dismissed the story, and Barnabette and her father were never sent to trial.
Yeah, it don't sound right. I mean, that's the easy way I would say, oh, some voodoo. No, that was an actual axe to, to the head. That was, a heinous crime. That wasn't something, but I get it. A person can be possessed in the voodoo and all that. I don't know too much about it, but I know it does exist. But for them to say, well, I got this thing and it possessed me and made me do it, they was kind of like, in them time, they're like, no, we need a little more hard, more facts than this.
But let me ask you this, Pan African Moor, though. Can a witch doctor create a charm that can give protection to make somebody do something? Or
Mm.
is that possible?
Mm.
Well, I mean, ain't nothing possible without the principle of cause and effect. So
Okay.
the way that cause and effect works is that if you, let's say, you want to magnetize yourself to something, well, the thing that you want to magnetize yourself to, they've got to have that same will, and then when y'all come together, then like there's a old saying that they say, well, how does a elephant step on a man. Well, the man had the one to get stepped on by an elephant, and the elephant wanted to have to step on a man. So it's another way of saying that two people cause and effect have to come together in order for a situation between them two. So if a man meets a woman, then the woman had to either subconsciously or consciously wanted to meet, a man, or maybe even a particular kind of man, and a man has to want that same, equation or same outcome. And that's how people come together, So let's say I was just looking at something with Blueface, the rapper, and this young lady that he met while he was locked up. They were pen pals. And if anybody knows, about Blueface, the rapper, was that before he got locked up, he was with Chrisean Rock. And, she done beat up some family members. I don't know if it was Blueface family or her own family members, but she's known for violence. And Blueface known for the same thing. And so now, now that I guess he's not with her, he has this other girl that he has on stream that was his pen pal, I guess. And she was punching on him and calling him, a bitch, and over and over again. And the saying, everybody got their type, so that's what he's attracted to, and she's attracted to the same kind of, the same kind of man, same as Krishan, going from one guy who's of that particular kind of pedigree. And when those two, willpowers come together, you have that kind of connection, whether you judge it as being good or bad, that's how cause and effect works, so I don't know if that. Oh, as far as your question about charms and things of that nature, is that, yeah, you gotta, the cause and effect got to be aligned on both sides. So you may have, if a person is not mentally fortified and you're able to use your subconscious and use symbolisms, then yeah, you can get a whole group of people to act outside of their true nature. Like the old comedic prophecy is that you will have a people in the West, which we're in the West, that look like Egyptians but have the mind of a totally different group of people. Well, how did they do it? Well, they did it through Catholicism, which Christianity is a subsidiary up under Catholicism. But, after the Councils of Nicaea and the Nicene Creed and Constantine and him bringing those bishops together in order to create what we now know as Christianity, they used the symbol of the cross, which is a sword if you turn it upside down. Shout out to Brother Kwame. And, they brought that particular science of symbolism, which the subconscious mind, it speaks the language of symbolism. It doesn't speak the language of a what you would call a logical conversation, which we talked about that many times on your Verbal Pit Radio podcast, Black. And, so they use the science of symbolism. They use trauma, which, trauma is another way to program the subconscious mind. So they just use these different elements. And even if you don't use the trauma part where you're not actually physically harming somebody, just the power of the tongue and the power of persuasion and somebody not having the mental fortitude, I mean, that's how pimping occurs, But the woman has to already be lacking mental fortitude in order for, the pimping to occur in that particular kind of way, you know. Um, so, mm-hmm.
I'm saying, mean that. So the person can not be born that way, but through lifestyles, life experiences, and circumstances will put you in a vulnerable position, so someone can take advantage of that pain and use it to their advantage.
Right. Or it could be a combination. You can have DNA genetic memory passed down from parents and other descendants that you come from that went through certain traumas that can get carried on, and then you have the nurturing aspect. So you have nature and nurture. In a lot of these situations where you got the genetic memory plus you get nurtured in a particular kind of environment and make you more susceptible to be open to suggestion and open to incantations, open to word spells. Because when don't let nobody fool you. When it comes to the Bible, the Quran, when it comes to court cases. Every word counts. Every word is powerful. Every word means something. Everything in the Bible, everything in the Quran can be used in a court case because we've used it. I've used it. I used it in my last court case. So words are very powerful. Words can be the difference between life and death, freedom, or being in a cage.
Right.
So same thing applies to all these sciences, whether regardless of what religion you're talking about, you got the power of words, power of symbolism, the power of repetition. Repetition programs the subconscious mind. That's why you hear songs over and over again, and you memorize them. You start to like them, even if you didn't, like them, when you first heard them. All of these things go into programming the mind, the subconscious mind, and the body follows the mind.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's just a science. That's all.
Okay. Okay. So look, we read now. Meanwhile, the murders were continuing. On February 19th, 1912, a mixed-race woman and her 3 children were murdered in their beds in Beaumont, Texas. 7 weeks later, on March 27th, another mulatto mother, her 4 children, and a male overnight guest were slain at Gilden, Texas. Glyden, Texas. The detectives, who were not sidetracked by the religious confusion in the case, took a more practical approach. They began to note a geographical pattern to the crimes. Since November 1911, the killer or killers had been striking at stops along the Southern Pacific Railroad line. This made it simple for the axe murderer to anonymously travel from town to town, always out of sight and one step of the authorities. In those days, it was fairly easy to hop a freight train as detectives took over the map. It seemed likely the next murders would occur west along the line in San Antonio, Texas, and they were right, but there was nothing they could do to prevent it. And let me ask y'all this, right? Check this out. Check this out. Now, there was a Hispanic guy in Houston called the railway murders. Name was Resendez. He was on a railway killing people, committing killings, right?
Yes, and then he'll go home to his family as if nothing.
Right, as if he did nothing, right?
Wow.
Right. You remember that? Now let me ask you this: Do you think? Do y'all think that once that energy like this happens in the air, does the universe, as it turns, as time progresses, will recreate something similar in another being? Because this guy was going along in 1912, killing people on the railway, and then in the
Hmm.
90s, you had Resendez, the railway killer in Texas again, killing people and go on along the railway and going home to his family.
Oh, so wouldn't that be a copycat?
You know, copycat kid. So that means he would have to known about these. How? That's what I'm saying. How would he know? We just not knowing about these murders, but it could have been a family member or someone that was passing it down. Like a griot, passing down this information through generations.
Right. So, but my question was, okay, let's say I believe that the authorities saying that it was it could have been a black individual. I think it was a form of deflecting or to deflect attention from the from an organized racial terror to avoid investigating white suspects.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think they
That.
did that. And the reason why I said it because during that time, was it really, really easy for
Yeah.
a person, a black person to move around like that? Think about it.
Right. Yeah.
So easily, really?
Right.
I don't think we could move around like that.
Like we
Not
can.
so easily.
Right. Yeah. We instate. They got such thing called driving while black today.
To this day, yes, sir.
Yeah, and you did have some cases where white men would put on blackface or dress like Indians or whatever and commit crime and blame it on people, and they had nothing to do with it. So, I mean, it's
In those
not far
times,
fetched.
one of the things that just from watching shows and studying and learning different things is that they got away with it so much that it was so just common for them to do things because they weren't gonna get in trouble. You
Right.
know, when we hear about it and read about it now, we're going like, wow, we can't, but they had to make a law, had to do something because it was just really getting out of hand. We only getting a little piece of it. I'm pretty
Right.
sure it really was out of hand back then to the fact that people say, you know what, we can't keep, we got to do something.
Yeah, because this is the thing that always gets popped that gets me. You go in the Wild Wild West days where it wasn't that far off, but you had Jesse James and Billy Kid and these gunslingers was just shooting down in the streets like it wasn't nothing, right?
Right.
While that was going on, where was the black people? Where, black people. They showed Cowboy the Indians, but I never black people. Or was the black people the Native Americans that they were talking about
I think that's what it really was.
and how they kept that out the picture, right? But
Right.
from that mindset of freelance killing in the Wild Wild West days, and then they tried to, establish some form of law, but that mindset carried on over to where it was, if they didn't like you, and if the crowd didn't like you, it was easy to kill you. You would be in the town in jail, black person, and when the mob came, the sheriff turned his head, and it was
Yep.
nothing.
Yep.
You
Right.
know, I guess you know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that, or it might not ever. I don't know, but I'm thinking that as time progresses, we still trying to get the justice system and the police situation situated, even on till today. It's not perfected. You know, like Pan African Moore stated that uh, words, right? A lot of people don't know you can use Quran and Bible in court cases. You know, they still trying to iron out the judicial system
Right.
till this day, and so I guess, hey, that's some work that has to be done. But it says, as the quiet nights dragged on, black residents of Louisiana and East Texas felt no relief from their fear of the mysterious killer. Blacks began arming themselves and even went as far as to post guards around their homes and neighborhoods. People were naturally filled with panic. Despite the number of church and public meetings that were held to try and uh, and get rid of their fears, fear even led to the deaths of two men in Victoria, Texas, shortly after the Burton murders. A young man named Ernest Smothers was guarding his family home when a friend stopped by to check on them. Terrified when he heard someone trying to open the front door, Smothers opened fire and shot his friend dead on the porch. The shot startled the neighborhood, and a neighbor, Max Warren, rushed over to see what was going on. When he saw the dead man, he became scared and hurried back towards his own house. As he was running, someone shouted, "There goes the axe man," and another neighbor shot Warren dead in his tracks. But let me go back, bro. Can y'all listen to this? Blacks began arming themselves and even went as far as to post guards around their homes and neighborhoods. But what was we dealing with back then? They armed themselves and was looking out for their neighbors and was holding posts at the neighbor's house, making sure that everybody was safe.
And let you know, even though they didn't have the technology like we have for communications, they still stuck together and everything traveled word of mouth. And everybody had, like you say, you know, they knew they had to protect themselves because the law was corrupt, the people were corrupt, in those times that you couldn't afford knowing that what didn't happen. Once, if someone tells you, hey man, somebody got murdered with an axe around the corner, you really gonna be looking around because, 9 times out of 10, that person is in that community that did that.
Bro, that's this, and I'm not getting out because this is part of this topic. The brother that's bringing people to Loving, Texas, out of Indiana, and he's trying to create all black community. Well, mostly he didn't state it, but mostly blacks are moving there. And Abbott and Conyers, they don't want him there. The what do you call it? The framework to build homes when they returned that following morning,
Yeah, they were totally demolished.
it was demolished.
Right.
But as they stated in NOI, man, look, business is warfare. You gotta have your guards to protect your investment.
Yep.
I mean, you got to, man. If not, you right. But I'm just saying that because back in in these times, they understood. Hey, man, we got to guard our investment. You know, while we're not guarding our investments today. I don't get it. And the reason I'm saying this is as time progresses, with all this technology and knowledge now, we should be moving closer to the goal than getting further away from the goal. Anybody got an idea on why we getting further away from what we had back in the days when we had less?
Mindset,
Yeah.
mindset of individuality is a problem, and that we've gotten away from family. And not to add that some of our family members make us want to get away from family
Right.
because
Yeah.
everyone is not holding themselves accountable and doing their part. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
So it's like this. Do we have to wait till the fire is under our heirs before we're actually forced to do it? Because right now, yesterday was right now that we needed to do it. It needed to happen.
Bro, right, exactly. On on Ibrahim Traore, and I saw the stuff you sent me on Gaddafi and whatnot, brother Moore. I saw some things where they saying, "Hey, World War III is coming, and it's involving Russia." And as you stated, Pebbles, do we have to wait until that fire is up under us for us to start moving and understanding to build? But yeah, it seems like it's happening. Let's put it like that.
Definitely feels like it. It definitely feels like it. And I think it's a system. It's all a system, and it's just a matter of who's controlling the system and who's a part of it. And even the system of convenience. People get drawn in when stuff is convenient for them. You let your guards down. It's easier to do this now. It's easier to do that. Then you fall victim to when somebody pull the rug up under you. You're not prepared because you got so comfortable. You
Right.
know, I think in these times they still doing the same stuff. They just find a different way to do it because they know people like us are still aware of how it was before, some of the things that were done. So when you go to like things we're doing now, having an open discussion about it, they try to stop that because that's when it's always been about to try to keep us on different pages so we can collectively think about a situation and come up with the pros and cons and make better decisions as a whole because we're all divided, in independent thought on how it should be done and all, comfortable with the convenience of, hey, I can feel how I want to feel and nobody agree with me, I'm okay with it. It's not gonna
Right.
happen. You know,
Yeah, doesn't work like that. It says arrests were made all over the region, and every man who had used an axe as a murder weapon was suspected of being the traveling killer who had slain so many families. Suspect after suspect was picked up in small towns and in railroad yards in Louisiana and Texas, but the authorities were unable to find anyone that they could solidly connect to any of the crimes. The killer's 4-month hiatus came to an end On August 6, 1912, late that night, the wife of a mixed race man named James Dashiell woke up to the blinding pain of an axe cutting through her arm. The assailant had been aiming for her head, but had somehow missed and struck her arm instead. As Miss Dashiell began to scream, the attacker fled from the house. The shaken woman was unable to give any sort of coherent description. And with that, the 15-month murder spree came to an end, leaving the police and the astonishment of detectives who delved into the case without a single solid piece of evidence. Defectors from the Sacrifice Church tried to convince the authorities of a connection between the church and the murders for some time, but detectives never managed to identify a valid suspect in the case. Could the disenfranchised church members have been right, though? The killer targeted people of mixed race and notably a number of white women who were either married to or in relationships with black men. According to the church members, the motive for the killings revolved around a verse from the New Testament, Matthew 3:10. And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the tree. Therefore, every tree which bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Was the killer trying to somehow purify the white race from those he saw as tainting it in some way? Perhaps, but it's likely we will never know. Very little documentation remains about these murders, and even the newspapers of the day failed to devote much space to the crimes that were perpetrated on Negroes, leaving more than 4 dozen victims in his wake. The killer vanished into history. But check this out. Now, I don't, it says in the New Testament, and now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Therefore, every tree which bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Hold on, brother.
So,
More
th-
real.
so, so, are they trying to say that actually that the white woman was the target and her offspring or husband was the collateral damage?
That's what they saying. They was,
Is
yeah,
it?
because
Like,
that's the root. See the root. You bringing forth these children.
hmm.
I don't. But I had a question for Brother Moore though, on regards to the how can I say, the the inclinations, because we know that the Bible have different meaning. We know astrological meanings. We know it has, some would say, deep into spell work, and there's some saying it's 25% actually happened and 75% prophecy. When you hear statements like that, where it says, and now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Is that metaphorically speaking?
Is that from the Bible?
That's from the Bible. Matthew 3:10. And now also the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Therefore every tree which bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Because you got people who take the scripture literally. You got some cults
Mm.
would take that literally and be like, if a child come out not right, even if they feel like they think the devil in them, they kill him on the spot.
Right, right. I mean, if I'm just taking it on face value, I mean, if you're able to attack the root, then yeah, I could see how that could spoil the fruit. If let's just say when it comes to our ancestors, is that when the root was attacked, then it shouldn't be no surprise that you have what you have today. So you got to do some reverse engineering, and in order to reprogram the subconscious mind back to something that is reminiscent of his original state, which without unity, you have nothing. Without common ground. I mean, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be working together. I mean, you can only work with your like-minded individuals that are all working towards the same goal. So it's not about everybody holding hands, kumbaya. I mean, you have to know who is setting himself up as your adversary, but then you also have to keep in mind that you have to have worldwide diplomatic relations when you're talking about operating on that level, when you're talking about how countries interact with each other. Even sometimes, even when you have, nations who are at war, they may still be able to come into the same place and talk amongst their diplomats and, either come to a resolution or they don't. But you had mentioned earlier about Russia, so when it comes to Russia and China, well, we know BRICS, there's a line in the sand between the West and BRICS. So there's a race for places who are rich in natural resources. And it's so crucial now because those natural resources is what power the new technology of today. So uh, people thinking that these natural resources are not absolutely crucial. No, they're crucial because the coltan and uranium and everything else. These are the things that power the energy in our homes and power the cell phone devices that we're using right now to talk on StreamYard. So it's absolutely crucial for these companies to compete worldwide to rush to wherever the majority of the natural resources are at. I was having a discussion with my little homie Rakala about natural resources. He was talking about countries overdoing it when it comes to depending on countries who are rich in natural resources. But the thing is that and if they're going to compete, then they got to do what they got to do. They got to make these deals, in Africa and then even Venezuela. I think they're rich in oil, if I'm not mistaken. We know the U.S. is at odds with them right now, but that's only because Venezuela is not acting in accordance with how the U.S. wants them to act when it comes to their resources and their politics.
What
So
do y'all remember Chavez? When Chavez was the president of Venezuela, our Citgo gas station, especially on Southwest Houston, he gave black people a 10% discount on gas. Boy, they was mad about that, and they was him behind that. And he out of there now. Same thing with Gaddafi. He offered that $5 million of Farrakhan, and they went crazy.
no, well, no, the first was it was 5 million was the loan, the interest free loan, and then he followed up with offering $1 billion gift
Right.
where the Nation of Islam wasn't gonna have to pay it back, and that $1 billion gift specifically was for the African American community for their economic and political development in the United States. They blocked it, and they blocked it under uh, the so-called first black president, Bill Clinton, under his regime, and
Come on.
then Obama finished off Gaddafi by with NATO and with other countries that signed off on it. That be Nigeria, South Africa, and Gabon. They signed off on the attack on Libya with those thousands of strike assaults that they laid down in the country, which the country is now destroyed.
Right.
Totally destabilized, and those terrorists are actually invading Burkina Faso and the Sahel. We're having to deal with those same terrorists to this day from the West, NATO, United States, actually funding those terrorists that assassinated Gaddafi. Was Gaddafi had paid off the loans and the debt of several African countries. The reparations that black people in America want today, Gaddafi was going to assist in that with the $1 billion grant for us specifically, and the U.S. blocked that. You know, not to mention the Pan African satellite that Gaddafi put 300 million towards,
Cell phone.
free health care. Go ahead.
He just
What'd you say, bro? Back?
now here where you can have free cell phone. You can have cell phone call where you can call from across Africa. He put a satellite in the sky.
Yeah.
I mean, energy.
Wow.
He gave stipends of the oil to every citizen.
Oh no! You see, that's too much. See, oh no, no, no,
But,
no.
but,
That
but
would
that's
be
the
too
same
much.
thing.
That'd be too much loyalty. That's
Well,
loyalty.
but that's the same thing with the brother in Loving, Texas, trying to get this community going. They were like, "Hey, well, wait a minute, you can't do that." Like you know how many white towns it is in Texas and
Oh, and
Louisiana?
not only that, you got to think about it. The minerals that are there.
Oh,
See,
yeah,
the
the
land. It's
middle,
one thing for the land, but the value of it. But nobody wants it.
right?
Nobody knew about it. But it's definitely political.
But this is the thing though, and and I'm not going on a race thing. I'm simply saying if it's a problem with black people bettering themselves, then let's just go and come out and say it. Let's just
No,
go and
no,
say
no, no, no.
it. We
Whispers.
we want y'all under our thumb for the rest of y'all life, and y'all got to find a way to maneuver and deal with it. Just
Yeah.
go and put it on the table so we can stop guessing and singing, and stop marching and because it's like, come on, let's deal. Go and put it on the table. We don't want we look because you're right. You can't have white supremacy if you don't have something that you feel you superior to, or else it just dismisses the whole logic of white supremacy. But we saying, wait a minute, why y'all picking us though? You
Right.
got all these other races. Not saying go get another race, but I'm saying all these other races on the planet. Why y'all dead and locked in just on black folk? What's going on, man?
We're the strongest. We're the strongest.
You gotta come after the strong. Out of all these different, you come. I mean, they dead locked. I mean, they would jump a gate, come way across the field, just pass by 1,000 people to get just to come get to us, bro. That's crazy.
That's wild.
But the thing is it caused. See, I think really both white folk need a therapist to go through some kind of mental evaluation on why they this way. Somebody need to sit down and see what trauma they've been through or what's actually going on because no man should try to dominate another man. And no man is gonna sit there and let you dominate it.
I
So
think I think it's the realization, man. They've had actually a reality check, and it's like what they have in your mind and what is really real in society that you can't do these type of things or these things people are not going to allow you to do them anymore. I think that's like a heat check. It's like, damn, it ain't like how I feel it should be, and I want to go do something about it. When you get the balls to go try to do something, and then you find out, oh, I can't do. You know what I mean? So the psychological evaluation of it, it's passed on. A lot of it's passed on generation to generation to generation. The mindset of you should be number one. Don't let no one do this, and you entitled to this and stuff like that. If you grew up in that, and that's all you were ever taught. So your mentality, is set on destruction.
yeah, but right, but now you got the adverse because you have a people who saying, "Wait, I like Popeye said, that's all I can stand, and I can't stand no more. That's it.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Time out, bro. Enough is enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's. Or are you saying that? Are you saying that you would never see me as a man to where we can sit down at the table and discuss issues as men?
That's the
Let's
thing.
sit down.
I always want a psychological advantage. If they can bring that argument to the table, then that's half of the fight. For you to try to, dominate you psychologically, do you think that I need you to think that I is coming to attack you, to take over or do everything to you, and you need to bow down to me? That's a psychological. It starts on that level first,
We
you
got.
know, because the physical part of it ain't even happening.
Or is it us though, man? Are we suffering Stockholm syndrome? Are we
People are.
with the captor? Are we? Is it us? Like, or is he saying, look, I done showed y'all time after time after time again, and y'all still, you know what I'm saying, coming with the songs and let me in, and I was because I was showing I was they was talking about in Philadelphia of equal housing. Well, they was talking equal housing back in the civil rights era. What you do you really think he finna give you some equal housing? You got to create your own equal housing. Do you think he finna give you some? You got to create your own justice. Do you really think folks got upset when the government shut down and the EBT cards and SNAP and he was shutting it down and they like, how can you do that? We got to feed our babies. He don't care nothing about your babies, man. Even poor, you know what I'm saying? Even poor white folk, he don't give a damn about your babies. What is he talking about?
Right.
You want sympathy from somebody, or you want sympathy or empathy from someone who's never shown it to you. Don't have a display of showing it to you. Martin Luther King figured that out toward the end of his life. He said, "Man, I feel like I'm leading my people into a burning building." Cause he was trying. He tried everything, and they still sucked dogs, water hose on him. Still, towards the end, he was like, "Look, let me go talk to Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm. Let me see what's going on, bro. Cause something ain't right around here, right?" And he sat down, and had to meet him, and then a week later, we know what happened. But he was like Abraham to me in a sense. Now, when Abraham was like, "Oh, God said, I'm going to kill all these people." Abraham like, "Well, what if I can find this many? What if I can find this many?" Okay, well, damn, can I find one? He couldn't find one, right? And I think one was like that too. Well, what if we march? What if we sing? Well, what if we non-violent? Or what if we love them enough till they love us back? He went through the whole course, and at the end, he was like, "God damn, man, these people, I can't figure out how to make it. I can't figure out how to budge them." So he changed his tone. So
I
it's
think
like,
I think one of the things is, I think one of the things is, by not being able to fight the same way, so I think they went about trying to do a peaceful part about it because you were outnumbered in guns, arms, you couldn't really just arm yourself like you wanted to. You had the justice system against you, so I think they had to try for that time to try a different approach, even though it didn't work. But that
at least it's on the record.
the mindset of it impacted a lot of people, and still to this day, certain parts of it do impact us. But I think we have a more militant mindset and a resistance type, where hey, we will, from our generation, I can honestly speak for our generation.
Mm-hmm.
We probably the last martyrs that they would ever be. I don't think the generations coming up under us, 2, 3, behind us, I don't think they have that same type of mindset. It's going to take years and years to get to that level of understanding. Like you say, hey, these people are not going to do this, not going to do that, and you have to think of a way out of this situation and being united. But like I say, you can't turn around and do the same thing. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
double-edged sword.
Yeah, they keep elevating the game. Like we was talking earlier, bro. We had to make money selling CDs out the trunk. They came out of our mind. Rap music had to come out of our mind. And as we created, then they created Napster and Waves. They come back and change the game on us. You know what I mean? But that's because we let them in.
Right.
And once one get in, they wiggle their way in, and it's not the flavor gone. It's not the same.
Definitely not the same.
It ain't the same. But we
Well, well,
deserve.
no, go ahead. My bad.
No,
I
I
thought you was.
you cut your wheels. What you were saying, brother? We good.
No, I may cut your wisdom. I thought you was about to parlay into another topic, but I just wanted to add something. You know, one understanding is that before the Moors went in 700 A.D. went into Europe, and they were going through disease, and they didn't have a sewer system, and they didn't have a real culture, and the Moors came in there, cleaned them up, gave them language, gave them culture, introduced them to luxury, so on and so forth, all the way up to 1492 AD, before they were overthrown by Queen Elizabeth and King Ferdinand, bringing their factions together and capitalized on the infighting between the Moors because they were had an internal struggle for power, and Spain and Portugal being the big dogs, the big dogs on the planet after they toppled the Moors in 1492. Now, once the Spanish and Portugal took over, we know that over the years, you seen France, come up, the United Kingdom and Belgium, Hungary, so on and so forth. You had all these European nations that were able to empower themselves through colonialism all the way up until this day. And the thing is that what makes our people think, or any logical person think, that they're going to uh, compromise their position as being the top dogs on the planet, number one position, and let the same people who came and cleaned them up, the same people who's on top, same people who had Mansa Musa had all the gold and luxury and resources and culture and music and introduced very high science and spirituality. And what makes our people think that they're going to relinquish their position, being in the number one position, and let us get back in position so that we can get back in the original position that we was in beforehand? That doesn't make any logical sense. Why would any thinking logical person think that that's even feasible? If you were in power and you in position, would you let them get back in the position knowing their history? That wouldn't make any sense.
Bro,
Now, it doesn't mean that you got to be a tyrant against them, but it just means, just from a logical standpoint, you want to position yourself on the chessboard where you can't fall up under the thumb again of the same ones that toppled, your empires of the past. That's just logic. So anybody living in this fantasy world thinking that, they're going to put us in position in order for us to get back in the previous position of being the number one on the planet again, they done lost their damn mind. That don't make no logical sense.
that war was lost when they was going up in the Caucasus Mountains to give them knowledge, and they said, "Bro, why would you give them knowledge? Just leave them like they are." Well, they show signs of life. They show signs of humanity. They show that they had a language, even though it might have been grunting and whatnot. But they show signs of man. And so the duty was, we gonna teach them. So when that decision made to teach, it was over with from there. Just like when they came to the shores and the natives saw them and let them land on them shores, the battle was lost. It was over with. You being reactive instead of active. So yeah, you're right. It's so the theory is time. It's gonna take time, and it's gonna take a higher mathematics and a higher science and higher knowledge than what we gave them in the beginning. Somebody got to come up with something.
Systems.
Systems.
It has to be systems to counteract the current systems.
Right. But they know that though, Pebbles. That's why our schools are the way they are, because they don't want that brilliant. They want that brilliant mind to stay distracted, so it can't be in a position to think, to come up with the system that's higher than the system that we gave them in the first place.
No, I mean to counteract the current systems that they have in place now, because that's it. That's the only way.
Yeah, but somebody got to create that system, right?
Right, we have to outbeat the current systems, and also we have to stray away and be more disciplined to not be so distracted. Because really, that's what a lot of the problem is. We're so distracted to where we can't concentrate.
Yeah, it's. Let me tell you a story. I'm leaving, right, and early in the morning, they're at the bus stop, right, putting their children on the buses, right, and somebody came through, music in the trunk, banging, right, and everybody started getting it. They jamming on the corner, just got distracted. Getting ready to go. It was home. It was a club. It was a party right there, man, on the corner, just like that, bro. I'm you right. It's easy. Ah, man, it's easy to get distracted. And they know. You know what? I said something about this earlier today. Look, a young man, he could be have a his favorite actor, right? And he in his mind saw that movie and said, "Man, that's his pattern." He put that as his mentor in his mind, right? And that actor started building, and they start building that actor up, right? And right at the moment when that actor started getting fame, and they started seeing young men started building and growing, they start throwing dresses on them.
Yeah.
They done it with Martin. They done it with Will. They Ben Rames. I would never thought Ben Rames would put a man in my life. And but it sent. They did that to send a shock through the community on purpose. But that's why everybody was with Dave Chappelle when he was like, man, he was the African man. I'm not putting no dress on, man. What? Like even Cat Williams, what's going on, right? But people was confused. But they were saying, well, yeah, but I got $3 million to put this dress on. But he print money. The value was in the dress. It wasn't about the money. He got his
Yeah,
print
you have
money.
and that's how they literally crush. See, it's like you getting $3 million, but what you've done is really you affected, let's say, 30 million young men.
But that's what
And
the
so that's the side effects of that.
that's the value. That and we
And
right
that's
we
money. And that's even in terms of money. Oh, it's okay to do this?
you
Right.
put it out there. That 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 was like wow. But it shows you that we are on the chessboard. He gonna do what he gotta do. It's our reaction. You supposed to block that. It's like he going up the dunk. You supposed to block that and knock it out of his hand. Man, I'm not doing that, right? And that'll just shut the whole thing down. But you right. They keep us in a poor, not money poor, but poor mindset to make us feel that you can't create wealth out of your mind. You got to create wealth at his hand. You don't have the you don't have the spirit and the energy to pull wealth out of this universe and draw it to yourself or be a magnet for wealth. You gotta get yours by his hand. That's why back in slavery time, now we gonna give you your clothes, we gonna give you your food, we gonna put you in this shack, in these slave quarters. And anytime you get home, you need anything, master gonna give it to you. Because he was trying to create that system. He was trying to create a dependent mindset where you can always be
Depend.
him, and he can always siphon out of you. Right?
Mhm.
You don't need to use your mind because I'm not going to allow you to be able to read and write. Just let me pour my mind into you. That's why I call it trading places.
Mm.
They are the mindset of our Moorish brothers in doing business, and they gave us they Cucker's mindset, and we got to figure out how to get our mind back, bro. That's the key. Somebody got it. We need what they call an innkeeper. Pour so much oil in the cup till the oil runneth over. We need so much not. Oh, and that's the purpose of this show, though. What we do right here today, you know.
Okay, so with what you're saying, okay, suppose it's just like this. Just suppose I create something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm great at it, even if it's a dance move or whatever. But then if a YTE person does it and they do it, okay, and they got a little bit of soul, then it's like, oh my God.
Right.
Then
They,
guess what? I just get shut down.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. Yes, that's part of the game. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so literally that's us.
That
We're actually validating that behavior.
is all us. Right.
Yep.
It's
That's what
all
we're doing
us.
only because it's a look. Oh, look, they're doing what we can do. and it's something about, it's because of them. It makes it more, it makes it illuminates it because they can do it.
Well,
That's us. That's us giving it incredibility.
well, you know how many times I done heard, I know it to be true because a white man told me. Yeah, I know that's true. Damn, you know what I mean? Now, you said it because I said it didn't have no validation, right? As
Right.
soon as he said, "Oh man, that's a God under the truth," oh yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah,
Brainwashed, man. Been
yeah,
brainwashed and programmed. You
yeah.
know,
But you can bet the
it's a
house on
job.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, you've
You
been
know,
brainwashed to feel that way. And it's sad to say, the part of person being brainwashed is that quick to turn on your own kind. We see the effects of it. You quick to turn on your own kind. It's like, I wish somebody would do something. You know what I mean? So you have this mentality, and it takes years and years. Like you say, you have to come up with a system. But the fact of it is that we broadcast everything we do. You know what I mean?
right?
Everything we do, we give them what they want. And like I say,
Yeah,
they learn how to capitalize off of it. That's let you know we are the original ones because we create everything. The original ones are the creators. You
right.
know, we set all the trends for everybody and stuff like that. But the fact of it is, they say, well, I'm going to allow you guys to do this on this place right here, so everybody can see, so everybody can capitalize off of it. We just have to get over that part of we want to be accepted by everyone and want, be glorified. You
Okay,
know,
but look, right, exactly. Look, y'all, look. We touched so many topics, but it was relevant. We went from the past to the present to the future. So that means we covered everything on this particular show. For those who listening, if y'all got any comments or ideas on the Mulatto Ax Murders, because Lafayette just right down the street, and a lot of it took place in Lafayette. I know some of the old timers in Lafayette know what took place in a town because the word travels in a small town.
oh
So
yes,
definitely they know. But look, we out of here. Appreciate you, Pan African Moore. Appreciate you, Pepper, Dave, your host, Cold Black, Bro, Big Radio, Eastern Film. We out.